for just half an audience all the time. You know, why not try to get the whole? I mean, I like to bring people into the big.
Jay Leno didn't just tell jokes, he lived them. From a quiet kid who loved stand-up to grinding it out in small clubs, Jay worked his way into America's living rooms. Then came The Tonight Show, the desk, the spotlight, the ratings. For years, he became part of nightly life. But then, something unexpected happened. Jay walked away. Twice. Fans were confused. Critics had theories. Rumors spread. Now, years later, Jay is finally speaking honestly about why he really left, what hurt, what mattered, and how he feels about it today. This is the full story of Jay Leno, from his early struggles to massive success, and the truth behind his exit. Join us as we go back to the very beginning and hear Jay's side fully told. Early life and family roots. Jay Leno was born on April 28, 1950, in New Rochelle, New York. His story starts in a very normal, working-class home. His mother, Catherine, was a homemaker. She was born in Greenock, Scotland, and moved to the United States when she was just 11 years old. His father, Angelo, worked as an insurance salesman. He was born in New York, but his parents were immigrants from Flumeri, a small town in Italy. So from the start, Jay grew up around hard work, immigrant values, and simple routines. When Jay was young, the family moved to Andover, Massachusetts. That is where he really grew up and went to school. He attended Andover High School and later went on to Emerson College in Boston. At Emerson, Jay studied speech therapy and earned a bachelor's degree. But while he was there, something else started to take over his life: comedy. In 1973, while still a student, Jay started a comedy club at the college. That was an early sign of where his heart really was. Comedy was not just a hobby, it was becoming his path. Jay also had an older brother, Patrick. Patrick was a Vietnam War veteran and later became an attorney. The two brothers took very different paths, but both lived lives built on discipline and commitment. This mix of education, family influence, and early risk-taking quietly set Jay up for what came next, stepping onto stages far bigger than he ever imagined. The long road through comedy and TV. Jay Leno's early career was not fast or easy. Like many comedians, he worked his way up slowly. His first big moment came on March 2nd, 1977, when he appeared on The Tonight Show for the first time. He performed a stand-up comedy routine. For a young comedian, this was huge. It put him in front of a national audience and gave him real credibility. But that appearance did not instantly make him famous. During the 1970s and early 1980s, Jay took on many small roles. He appeared in TV shows like Good Times, One Day at a Time, Alice and Laverne and Shirley. He also showed up in films, often in small or uncredited roles. These included Fun with Dick and Jane, American Hot Wax, Silver Bears, Americathon, and Polyester. None of these roles turned him into a movie star, but they kept him working and visible. His only starring movie role came much later, in 1989, in a direct-to-video film called Collision Course, where he acted alongside Pat Morita. At the same time, Jay became a familiar face on Late Night with David Letterman. He appeared there many times, building a reputation as a reliable and funny guest. He also took part in the short-lived game show Match Game Hollywood Squares Hour in the early 1980s. Through all of this, Jay never stopped doing stand-up comedy. Clubs, theaters, late nights, early mornings. That grind never went away. Every appearance, no matter how small, was another step forward. And slowly, that steady work began to put him closer to the center of late-night television, taking over The Tonight Show and the ratings battle. By 1986, Jay Leno had become a regular substitute host for Johnny Carson on The Tonight Show. This was one of the most important roles of his career. Carson had hosted the show for nearly 30 years and was a legend. Sitting in that chair, even temporarily, was serious pressure. In 1991, Johnny Carson announced that he would retire. When the time came in 1992, NBC chose Jay Leno to replace him. This decision caused major controversy. Many people, including Carson himself, believed David Letterman should have taken over. Letterman had hosted Late Night right after Carson's show for 10 years. The tension was intense and very public. Letterman eventually left NBC and launched The Late Show with David Letterman on CBS in 1993. At first, Jay's Tonight Show struggled. Letterman beat him in the ratings for almost 2 years. NBC even considered changing hosts again. Everything felt uncertain. Then, in July 1995, Jay interviewed Hugh Grant, who had just been arrested in a widely publicized scandal. That episode changed everything. It was the first time Jay beat Letterman in the ratings. From that moment on, The Tonight Show stayed #1 for the rest of Jay's first run, 14 straight years at the top. During this time, Jay kept doing stand-up comedy and stayed closely tied to the audience. NBC extended his contract multiple times, including a major extension in 2004 that would keep him as host until 2009. Caught between comedy and consequence. In 2005, Jay Leno found himself in a very serious and unusual position. During the Michael Jackson trial over allegations of child molestation, Jay was called as a defense witness. This alone surprised many people, since Jay was known mainly as a late-night comedian, not someone who testified in court. Jay spoke about a phone conversation he had with the accuser. In his testimony, he made it clear that he was never asked for money. He also said there was no obvious coaching involved. Still, something about the calls felt off to him. He described them as strange and said they felt scripted. That detail stood out and showed Jay was trying to be honest, without adding drama. This moment placed him right in the middle of one of the most talked-about trials in the world, and it instantly changed how he had to operate on his own show. Because he had testified, Jay was first told he could not joke about Michael Jackson or the trial. This was a big deal. Jokes about current events, especially major trials, were a regular part of The Tonight Show's opening monologue. Instead of dropping the topic completely, Jay and his writers found a clever workaround. Jay would step off the stage for a moment, and other comedians would come out and tell the jokes instead. Big names like Roseanne Barr, Drew Carey, Brad Garrett, and Dennis Miller filled in. It became a running gag and kept the audience engaged. The rule was later challenged in court. The judge ruled that Jay could joke about the case again, as long as he did not talk about his own testimony. Jay celebrated in classic fashion by doing an entire monologue filled with Michael Jackson jokes, turning a restriction into a moment of release. Around the same time, big changes were happening with his career. Even though The Tonight Show was still leading the ratings, Jay's contract was coming to an end. People began to wonder if he would leave NBC altogether. On May 29, 2009, Jay officially stepped down as host, and Conan O'Brien took over just days later. But Jay did not really leave the network. Instead, NBC announced that he would stay and host a new show at 10 p.m. It was called The Jay Leno Show. It kept a similar format, used the same studio, and even brought back popular segments like Headlines. When the show premiered in September 2009, Jay welcomed guests like Jerry Seinfeld, Oprah Winfrey by satellite, and Kanye West, who spoke briefly about his MTV controversy. It looked like a fresh chapter, but it also raised new questions about where Jay truly fit in late night. When the new plan started to crack. You see, When Jay Leno moved into his new role at 10 p.m., NBC hoped everything would settle down. But that did not happen. In their new positions, both Jay Leno and Conan O'Brien struggled to pull in the audiences NBC expected. Jay's 10 p.m. show did not perform well, and Conan's version of The Tonight Show also failed to meet ratings hopes. This created a chain reaction across the network. Local NBC affiliates began to complain because their late local news shows were losing viewers. That pressure kept growing. By early January 2010, reports started spreading that NBC was planning a major change. The idea was simple but risky. Jay would leave the 10 p.m. slot and move back to late night at 11:35 p.m. His show would also be cut from 1 hour to just 30 minutes. At the same time, the 2010 Winter Olympics were approaching, and NBC planned to push all late-night shows back even further during that period. The Tonight Show would air at 12:05 a.m., a time slot it had never had before. This plan followed a clause in Conan's contract that allowed NBC to move the show after midnight. On paper, it was legal, but emotionally and symbolically, it was explosive. Behind the scenes, things were moving fast, and Conan had no warning. That silence would soon turn into open conflict. Conan draws the line. NBC officially confirmed the plan in mid-January 2010. Jay would leave primetime and return to late night as soon as possible. Conan O'Brien was suddenly faced with a choice he never expected to make. Reports said he was offered two options. He could accept The Tonight Show at 12:05 a.m. or leave NBC entirely. Conan responded publicly and firmly. He said he could not continue hosting The Tonight Show if it was pushed past midnight. In his statement, he explained why. He said, "The Tonight Show at 12:05 simply isn't The Tonight Show." To him, delaying the show to make room for another comedy program would damage what he called the greatest franchise in television history. This statement made headlines everywhere. The late-night war was no longer quiet or private. It was now public and emotional. Just days later, NBC reached a deal with Conan. He would leave the show, receive a $33 million payout, and his staff of nearly 200 people would receive $12 million. His final episode aired on January 22, 2010. It marked the end of a short and painful chapter. After the Winter Olympics ended, Jay Leno returned to The Tonight Show on March 1, 2010. He was back in the chair, but the damage to NBC's image and relationships was already done, leaving many to wonder if things would ever feel normal again. Ratings fall, but Jay stays on top. When Jay returned to The Tonight Show, the situation was calmer, but not perfect. By mid-2010, reports showed that total viewership had dropped compared to the year before. The show went from around 5 million viewers to 4 million in the second quarter of 2010. These were the lowest second quarter numbers since 1992. Still, even with that decline, The Tonight Show remained the most watched late-night program. It continued to beat ABC's Nightline and CBS's Late Show with David Letterman. From the outside, it looked like Jay had survived the chaos once again. But inside NBC, the stress of the past few years lingered. Executives had seen how fragile the system was. They had seen what happened when trust broke down, and Jay himself was not untouched by it. In private, he compared being pushed out of The Tonight Show to the end of a relationship. He said he had been loyal and still ended up heartbroken. From his point of view, none of it made sense. His show was still number one. It still made money. Yet he was being moved, questioned, and doubted. Jay grew tired of pretending everything was fine. He told producer Debbie Vickers that he was sick of lying when people asked about his retirement. The jokes in his monologues began to reflect that frustration. especially jokes about NBC's struggles and fourth-place rankings. Quietly, Jay even began thinking about life after NBC, including the idea that his staff could follow him to another network. Interest from ABC and Fox only added to the tension, even as NBC tried to hold on. Letting go and the final goodbye. By 2013, NBC decided it was time to plan a clean ending. On April 3rd, the network announced that Jay Leno would leave The Tonight Show in spring 2014. Jimmy Fallon was named as his successor. This time, the transition was clear and public, with no secret clauses or surprise moves. Jay's final episode aired on February 6, 2014. It was filled with familiar faces and emotional moments. Billy Crystal appeared, just as he had been the first guest back in the early days of Jay's run. Garth Brooks performed as the musical guest. Surprise guests filled the stage, including Jack Black, Kim Kardashian, Jim Parsons, Sheryl Crow, Chris Paul, Carol Burnett, and Oprah Winfrey. It felt like a celebration and a farewell at the same time. Years earlier, NBC executives like Jeff Zucker had tried everything to keep Jay, from primetime specials to cable shows. Jay himself once joked about the gamble of moving to primetime, saying he was heading to a place where no one could find him, NBC primetime, and laughed that he was betting everything the network would still be around in 3 months. That joke now felt heavier in hindsight. After decades in late night, Jay Leno finally stepped away from The Tonight Show for good, leaving behind a legacy shaped by success, loyalty, confusion, and one of the most dramatic transitions television had ever seen. Still on the road and back on screen. After leaving The Tonight Show, Jay Leno did not slow down. In fact, his schedule stayed just as busy as before. He continued touring as a stand-up comedian, performing an average of around 200 live shows every year. These shows took place all across the United States and Canada, along with charity events and USO tours. Stand-up comedy remained the center of his working life. At the same time, Jay stayed connected to late-night television. He appeared as a guest on The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon and Late Night with Seth Meyers. He also showed up on the final episode of The Late Late Show with Craig Ferguson. In a playful moment, Jay even made a cameo on the premiere of The Late Late Show with James Corden, where he joked about putting Corden through a fake boot camp for talk show hosts. One notable absence stood out. Jay declined an invitation to appear on Late Show with David Letterman, even though many expected him to show up for Letterman's finale in 2015. Still, the two had appeared together before in a Late Show commercial during the Super Bowl in 2010. Jay's presence across TV showed that while he had left the desk behind, he had not disappeared, and his next chapter was already taking shape. Jay Leno's Garage and new TV roles. In 2014, Jay launched a new project that fit his personal interests perfectly. He hosted a 1-hour special called Jay Leno's Garage on CNBC. The show focused on cars and mechanical stories, something Jay had always been passionate about. The response was strong enough that the special returned as a full primetime series in 2015. Jay Leno's Garage ran for 7 seasons, staying on the air until 2022. In January 2023, CNBC canceled the show, not because of ratings issues, but because the network decided to shift back toward business-focused programming. Alongside this, Jay also took on acting roles. He appeared regularly on the comedy series Last Man Standing, starting in Season 5. He played Joe Leonard, a mechanic who worked in a store run by Tim Allen's character. Jay also returned to hosting by leading the 3rd revival of the game show You Bet Your Life, which aired from 2021 to 2023. Although the show was renewed for another season, It was later canceled when Jay refused to cross the picket line during the 2023 Writers Guild of America strike. Fox offered stations other game shows to fill the slot instead of reruns. Jay also continued voice acting, playing the Crimson Chin on The Fairly Odd Parents for many years, and voicing Billy Beagle on Mickey and the Roadster Racers. Even into the late 2010s and early 2020s, Jay appeared as a guest judge on shows like America's Got Talent, and later returned to NBC as a celebrity judge on Hot Wheels, Ultimate Challenge. His work never truly paused, but the past kept following him. The backlash that would not fade. Despite staying active, Jay Leno continued to face heavy criticism for his role in the 2010 Tonight Show conflict. Many critics pointed to a clip from 2004 where Jay had publicly said he would step aside and let Conan O'Brien take over without trouble. In that clip, Jay explained that he did not want Conan to leave for another network. He even said, "I'll be 59 when the switch occurs. That's 5 years from now. There's really only one person who could have done this into his 60s, and that was Johnny Carson." He described The Tonight Show as a dynasty, saying, "You hold it and hand it off to the next person. And I don't want to see all the fighting." He ended the moment by telling Conan, "Conan, it's yours. See you in 5 years, buddy." When events later unfolded very differently, many people felt let down. Jimmy Kimmel later spoke about his own issues with Jay during an interview on Marc Maron's podcast. Kimmel said he believed Conan was not given a fair chance, but also explained that his feelings came from personal experience. According to Kimmel, Jay had built a friendship with him while considering a move to ABC, where Jay would have taken Kimmel's time slot. When Jay decided to stay at NBC, that friendship disappeared. Kimmel said he felt worked over, believing Jay had used those talks as leverage. Other criticism came from comedians like Patton Oswalt, who said the disappointment was not hatred, but hurt. Oswalt said one of the best comedians of their generation had willfully shut the switch off. Even years later, Jay also faced criticism in 2020 for publicly supporting Ellen DeGeneres during controversy surrounding her show. The pressure on Jay's image never fully lifted, leaving his reputation split between respect and resentment. Defenders, explanations, and speaking out. As criticism grew, many powerful voices stepped in to defend Jay Leno. Dick Ebersol, a longtime NBC executive and former Saturday Night Live producer, strongly pushed back against Jay's critics. He called them chicken-hearted and gutless. Jeff Gaspin, then chairman of NBC Universal Television Entertainment, also defended Jay, saying, "Jay Leno is the consummate professional and one of the hardest-working people in television." Other comedians, including Paul Reiser, Jerry Seinfeld, and Jim Norton, also spoke in support of him. Jay himself responded by explaining that NBC had assured him Conan was willing to accept the proposed changes and that the network would not let either host out of their contracts. He said the entire situation was all business and that the decisions were made by NBC, not him. To try and repair the damage to his public image, Jay appeared on The Oprah Winfrey Show in January 2010. It was one of the few times he spoke openly and emotionally about the situation in a public setting. That appearance showed a different side of him. Not just the comedian, but a man trying to explain how loyalty, confusion, and network decisions collided. Even after all the shows, tours, and new projects, the shadow of The Tonight Show followed Jay Leno, shaping how people viewed everything he did next. A quiet personal life. Behind the spotlight. Jay Leno's life away from television has always been far more private than his career on screen. He has been married to his wife, Mavis Leno, since 1980. Their marriage has lasted for decades, quietly and without scandal, even during the most chaotic years of Jay's career. While Jay was stepping into the spotlight as host of The Tonight Show in the early 1990s, his personal life was hit with deep loss. In 1993, during his very first season hosting the show, Jay's mother passed away at the age of 82. Just 1 year later, his father died at 84. Years later, in 2002, Jay lost his older brother Patrick, a Vietnam War veteran and Yale Law School graduate who died of cancer at 62. These losses happened while Jay was still showing up every night on television, smiling, joking, and doing his job. In 2024, another painful chapter became public. It was revealed that Mavis Leno was suffering from an advanced form of dementia. The court granted Jay conservatorship of their joint estate after doctors confirmed that Mavis experiences periods of confusion and sometimes does not recognize Jay or even remember her own date of birth. This news showed a deeply human side of Jay's life, one filled with care, responsibility, and quiet strength, far removed from the applause of late night. Health, habits, and hard falls. Jay Leno has always been open about who he is and how he lives. He is known for his large jaw, which doctors describe as mandibular prognathism. In his book, Leading with My Chin, Jay explained that surgery was an option, but he chose not to do it because it would require a long recovery with his jaw wired shut. Jay has also spoken openly about being dyslexic, something he has lived with his entire life. He says he only needs 4 or 5 hours of sleep each night, a habit that likely helped him survive decades of late-night work. He does not drink alcohol, does not smoke, and does not gamble. When he is not working, he spends much of his free time around cars, visiting collections, or working in his own garage. In recent years, Jay's physical health has drawn public attention for different reasons. In November 2022, he suffered serious burns to his face and hands when a vehicle in his Los Angeles garage burst into flames. During treatment, he even received what he described as a new ear. Just months later, in January 2023, Jay broke multiple bones after falling off a motorcycle. Then, in November 2024, he suffered another serious accident. While walking to dinner outside a hotel in Pennsylvania, Jay tripped and rolled down a hill, breaking his right wrist, tearing off a fingernail, and badly bruising his face and side. These incidents shocked fans and reminded many that even someone as tough and driven as Jay Leno is not immune to the wear of time and chance, especially when his love for machines keeps putting him close to danger. Cars, money, and a life built on passion. If there is one thing that defines Jay Leno outside of comedy, it is cars. Jay owns one of the most impressive vehicle collections in the world. As of late 2024, his collection includes at least 181 cars and 160 motorcycles. His passion is so deep that it became a full TV series and website called Jay Leno's Garage, where he shows off vehicles, explains their history, and shares stories about engineering and restoration. His garage manager, Bernard Yuckley, helps oversee the massive collection. Among the rarest vehicles are 2 Doble steam cars once owned by Howard Hughes, a Duesenberg Model X, and one of only 9 remaining Chrysler turbine cars from 1963. The collection also includes antique electric cars, tanks, and experimental machines. Jay has said that his wife Mavis's favorite car is a 1909 Baker electric vehicle. The most valuable car he owns is a 1994 McLaren F1, which he bought in the late 1990s for about $800,000 and is now worth at least $20 million. The full collection is estimated to be worth more than $52 million. Despite his wealth, Jay has often said he never spent the money he earned from The Tonight Show. Instead, he claims to live off his stand-up comedy income. In 2005 alone, he reportedly earned $32 million. Jay also writes about cars, with a regular column in Popular Mechanics and occasional motor-mouth articles for the Sunday Times. He even opened his garage to video game developers working on L.A. Noire, allowing them to study nearly 100 cars from the late 1940s to recreate them accurately. Everything about Jay's lifestyle points back to passion over luxury, a pattern that explains many of his choices later in life. Clearing the air and facing his legacy. Even years after leaving The Tonight Show, Jay Leno has never fully escaped the shadow of the late-night wars. The controversy surrounding Conan O'Brien's short run as host followed him for more than a decade. Many fans believed Jay had sabotaged Conan's chance, and the rise of Team Coco showed just how strongly public opinion turned. In 2022, Jay decided to address the rumors directly. Appearing on Bill Maher's Club Random podcast, he said he never tried to deliberately sabotage Conan. As he explained, "That doesn't work. It doesn't work that way. You try and do the best you can, and it didn't work." He did not apologize to Conan, but he made it clear that the decisions were not his to control. Jay did, however, apologize publicly to Jimmy Kimmel. He admitted that when ABC approached him about a possible deal that would have pushed Kimmel's show to a later slot, he spoke with Kimmel and then disappeared when the deal fell apart. "I think maybe he was hurt by that, and I apologize to him for that," Jay said. Kimmel had famously mocked Jay to his face in a 2010 interview, joking that the best prank he ever pulled was promising someone his show for 5 years and then taking it back. Supporters have continued to defend Jay. NBC executives and fellow comedians have called him professional, loyal, and misunderstood. Jay himself has said the situation was all business, and that NBC made the decisions. Today, Jay stays busy with stand-up, cars, and charity, largely out of the spotlight. His legacy remains complicated. To some, he is a late-night giant. To others, a symbol of a broken transition. But Jay Leno continues forward, living a life shaped by loyalty, work, and the choices he insists were never as simple as they looked. Do you think Jay Leno was treated unfairly in the Tonight Show drama? Or do you believe he should have stepped aside for Conan O'Brien? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more incredible stories from Hollywood's fascinating history. See you next time.